Welcome back to Proportional Relationships, and we should be on Lesson 5, page 6. You probably noticed from the page there are tables, and we're going to focus the next two lessons on dealing with constant of proportionality and tables. So let's read what they give us. It talks about the constant of proportionality again, and we can also refer to that as the K value, and it's also the unit rate. They're asking us to use the situation below to complete the table. So that's going to be our first task. And then answer the questions. And here's the situation. A gym employee is paid monthly. After working for 3 months, he has earned $4,500. To determine how much money he will make over a 6-month period, he created the table below. So if we investigate the table, we can see that the months, he went up to 6 months, and it doesn't list the earnings. So that's going to be our first task. And what will be helpful is finding the K rate, and we do that by taking a Y value over an X value. Right now that might look like we're not going to be able to do it, but they did give us some information up here that's going to be very helpful. So let's get started. I'm going to expand this because, quite frankly, as you might have noticed, I don't have the best handwriting. So I'm going to try to make it bigger so they can see a little bit better. So when we work on this, it gives us right here, I'm going to highlight it, says for 3 months he earned $4,500. And that's very important. That's going to help us out quite a bit. I'm going to do the work under number 1 right now just because there's no good working space. And you're going to notice, hopefully, that 3 months is in our X column. And now we know the earnings, at least for 3 months. We know that he earned $4,500. So knowing that is going to be useful because now we can find the unit rate. It also mentioned that he's earning at the same rate, and that's also important because now we know it is proportional. So I'm going to write $4,500 over 3 months. And then I'm going to take my calculator and divide 4,500 by 3. And when I do that, I get 1,500. When we do that, that means this is $1,500 per month. And so that little bit of information they gave us up there also told us how much he earned in 1 month. So now we notice that he earned $1,500 in his first month. And we can use that because we also know once we put Y over X, we also now know the constant of proportionality. So how can we use that to our advantage? Well, if we know that this is constant, this is going to be, if it's proportional, this is always going to be $1,500 for each one of those. And you may have noticed that from the past tables that there's a pattern. When we know what the constant of proportionality is, and if these numbers are going consecutively, like we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, we're really adding 1,500 every time we go down to the next month. So 1,500 plus 1,500 would be 3,000. And just to double check to make sure this is working out, we're going to try that Y value, which is $3,000, divided by 2 months. And again, it does equal 1,500. So we can continue this pattern that we see by adding whatever we're given, in this case 4,500 and 1,500, because that constant of proportionality is going to be added each time. So we get 6,000. We're going to add 1,500 to 6,000 to get the next amount. And we get 7,500. And then finally 7,500 plus 1,500. We're going to get 9,000. Now, we can always stop and check to make sure this is working. For instance, if I'm not quite sure this is working out, let's take our last Y value of $9,000 and divide it by our month, 6,000. And when you do that, you will indeed get 1,500. Now we're ready to answer the questions. All right, next problem number 1 says, if he continues to earn at the same rate, how much would he have earned after working 5 months? And because we've created the table, that's going to be easy to find. So we're going to look at our 5 months, and we can see that he earned $7,500 in 5 months. The next question says, after how many months will the gym employee have made $19,500? Now there's a couple ways we can do this, but as I look at this, if I look down his earnings, we could continue our pattern of adding 1,500 until we made it all the way up to 19,500. That would be a legitimate way to find it. However, that's a little bit cumbersome. So let's see if there's another way we can do this. In fact, I'm going to investigate what they ask us in question 3. I actually wish they would have asked us about question 3 before, because it says write an equation to represent the constant of proportionality. And the constant of proportionality is the y values divided by the x values, and we can see we have this constant of proportionality right here. So we talked about in the previous lesson that the equation we're looking for looks something like this. Y equals kx. Y being all the y values we're talking about. In this case, it's earnings. X being the months in this case. And the k is the constant of proportionality. So we can write this equation right now. We have y, the total earnings, equals 1,500 times the months. And so this might be much more efficient to use for problem number 2. So let's see what that looks like. So let's go back and reread the question. It says, after how many months will the gym employee have made 19,500? And as I look at that, I'm noticing that the months are the x value and the 19,500 is the earnings, the y value. So let's put this together in an equation based on what we wrote in lesson number 3. Here's the equation that we're given to work with using the constant of proportionality. We know what the y value is. In fact, they gave us 19,500, and that equals 1,500, and we don't know the months, so we're going to have to leave that x alone. That's going to have to stay x. So now this is a one-step solve. So I'm going to divide by 1,500 on this side, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side, 1,500. Over here, it eliminates the 1,500, and that leaves my x. And on the other side, we're all going to pause and take 19,500 divided by 1,500. And the answer that I have is 13. So let's go back and answer the question. It said after how many months? And our answer is 13, so we can answer 13 months. So now let's go on to the next problem. All right, our next problem says a student reads at a constant rate. That's important. That's telling us it's proportional. In her chapter book, Where the Red Fern Grows. This can be described by the equation y equals 1/2 x. Oh, they gave us the equation this time. Complete the chart below. So we're going to use this equation, and at home I know that you might not have a calculator that has a fraction button. So we can write this equation, y equals 1/2 x, in an equivalent form if you need to. Y equals 0.5, that should be an equal x, 0.5, because 5/10 is the same thing as 1/2. So if that's helpful to you, that's great. You're going to get your answers probably in fraction or in decimal form. And if I use 1/2, more than likely I'm going to get them in fraction form. So I'm going to write them both ways. I'm going to use the space below to do this. I'm going to take my equation, y equals 1/2, and my first x value, remember the first column is my x, and the second column is my y, 1/2 times 1, and anything times 1 is going to give you back what you started with. So we would get back 1/2, or you could write it as 0.5. I'm going to use it again. This time, I'm going to use the second y value, which is 2. The second x value, which is 2. 1/2 times 2 would be 1. Please pause this and complete the table using that same pattern. Hopefully you now have the same pages read as I have here. I put it in fraction and decimal form. Now let's look at the y divided by x column. And I'm going to just key off the whole numbers right now. If I wrote y over x, this would be 1 over 2. If I go to the next whole number, that's going to be 2 over 4, which also equals 1/2. And then if I use the last whole number, y whole number, I'd be 3 over 6, and that also reduces to 1/2. Now you might be wondering what's going to happen when we have to use a fraction over a whole number or a decimal over a whole number. Well, let's investigate with a calculator. If I take 1/2, which is the y value, and divide it by 1, or if I take 0.5 and divide it by 1, I'm going to get back the same thing, which is either going to be 1/2 or 0.5. If I take 1.5, and I'm just going to go like 1.5, 1 and 1/2 divided by 3, or you can take 1.5 divided by 3. Let's investigate what you get. Pause this video, and would you try that ratio? And would you also try this next ratio? 2 and 1/2 divided by 5. It's matching x value, or you can put it in as 2.5 divided by 5. Hopefully you got 1/2 for all of these. And where have we seen that 1/2 before? Well, it's in the equation as the k value, and this is also known as the constant of proportionality, and it's 1/2 throughout the table. So that's one of the ways we can check and make sure we're doing this the right way. Let's continue. The teacher recommends that the students read for 20 minutes each night. How many pages will the student complete? Well, it looks like we've been given 20 minutes each night. And what we know is that our minutes are our x value. If I look in the table, it's the x values. And I don't know about you, I could, but I don't want to, I could go ahead and complete all the way down to 20 and using this pattern, or I could just go ahead and use the equation that's given. So I want to know how many pages are read. That's what they ask, how many pages, and that's y. I have this equation with the constant of proportion. I 1/2 a page per minute. So if I just put my minutes in there, that's going to tell me how much student can complete. So 1/2 of 20 is 10. So the student can complete 10 pages. The next question. In a really exciting part of the book, the student read 18 pages in one sitting. For how many minutes did she read? So once again, let's decide what we know. We know that the student read 18 pages. And what we're trying to find out is for how many minutes the student read. So pages is the y value and minutes is the x value, and that's really helpful in a table. So our equation will look like this. I'm going to replace the y with 18. The equation says the constant of proportionality is 1/2 for everything referring to this. And what I don't know is the x. It might be helpful if you don't have a calculator that works with fractions to rewrite this as 18 equals 0.5x. So now we have a one-step equation that we can solve. We're going to build the wall, and we're going to divide by whatever is next to x. In this case, it's 1/2, or if you rewrote it in decimal form, it's 0 5/10. So take a moment and finish that on your calculator. I'm running out of room, but I'm going to go ahead and write that 36 equals x. Hopefully you have the same answer. And what we just answered is 36 minutes. That's how long it took her to read 18 pages. Finally, the last question asks us if the book is 245 pages, how many minutes will it take her to finish? So once again, they're giving us the number of pages. So right here's the number of pages. And we're asked to find out the number of minutes. So this is very similar to the question we just answered in 5. Go ahead and see if you can set that up. Pause the video for a minute. Okay, hopefully you have this equation right here. And I wrote it down here because I needed a little bit more room to write. You can use either version. If you did not get this answer first, check to see if you have this equation. And if not, did you divide starting with the top divided by the bottom? Top again divided by the bottom. So it will take her 490 minutes to complete the book, or take her 490 minutes to read 245 pages. Thank you for your time. See you next lesson.